So what happens when two third-generation Arizona women authors who are passionate about their state start talking about experiences, insights, and memories of different places? They don't stop talking. They write a book, and then they start a podcast. Welcome to Celebrating Arizona with Julie Morrison and Lisa Schnebly Heidinger. Grab your favorite drink and settle in. We're celebrating Arizona, going everywhere from A to Z. And we're off.
Hello.
Hi.
We're back.
We are, and glad to be so.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
How are things?
So this morning in church, I had a woman tell me a story because she had spots on her coat. And she said, "Oh, it's left over. I was taking dinner to my daughter and the pie made it, but the vegetable tray, I stopped too fast and it went all over the back seat, and I'm still picking broccoli out of the car." Which I
I'm still, okay, that's today's title. I'm
Yes.
still picking broccoli out of the car.
Yes. So I am having a picking broccoli out of the car day.
That is a new term.
Yes. And it's one of those days where it feels like I am short of everything I want and long on anything I don't.
And
So
yet,
broccoli in the car being one of the things.
you
Yes.
indomitable force of nature, here you sit.
Well, so one of my favorite lines is from The Holiday with Queen Latifah, and the French chef tells her, "It's not how you start, it's how you finish." So,
Lovely.
yeah, right? So, the show may begin with broccoli, and who knows what
Who
we'll
knows where
end
it's going to
with.
go?
But in my world, almost anything is better than broccoli, so it's a low bar. And
Which is so funny because I think I eat a pound of chopped broccoli pretty much every day for lunch.
I know you do. Yes, I know. Yes, you are incredible with these very healthy vegetables. I have a cousin who calls them toxic vegetables, and I'm kind of in his camp for that. Yeah.
That reminds me that youngest brother and his wife used to call the crisper the rotter
Oh, that's
because
funny.
anything you put in there would end up rotting because you knew you weren't going to
Yes.
cook it.
Yeah.
Broccoli goes in the rotter,
Yeah, because you had the willpower to get the broccoli, but not to cook and eat it. Yes.
not to
Yeah.
follow through. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but don't you have one about mothers on the roof? So mine is the broccoli is in the car.
The broccoli's in, and I will know that I must tread very carefully if I hear that one.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of hearing, you're going to start.
I'm going to
So
start.
where are we
Yes.
headed, my friend?
So we are going kind of smack dab to the center of the state and the center of Phoenix in Papago Park. We are going there because I had the very good fortune to meet you recently and walk there. And we recalled that it was the first time since we got our vaccinations, our first rounds of vaccinations, that we were able to, or our second round, whenever
The
it
second
was.
round,
Once
yeah.
the second round, that's when it was. And we finally got together and
Got to be together in
yep,
person.
and got to be together in person and went walking. And on that great celebratory day. And so it was very fun to be in Papago Park. And I've taken dogs walking there. My parents took me to the zoo since I was a little girl. It's a favorite place. The botanical garden and the zoo were sort of favorite places to go coming in from college and meeting up with people. They were great places to do a meetup.
Oh.
And do like a first walk off the plane and just sort of get,
I didn't realize there was that much history there when we were there the other day.
there's a lot. There really is. My mother has done a lot of work with the Phoenix Zoo, but Papago Park itself is also, one of the two places in Phoenix that you can see saguaro cactus. There are lots of places in Phoenix. Well, there are more places in Phoenix, but these are two parks in Phoenix where you can see saguaro cactus. And for people who, and I think it's interesting that, for all that we think of Arizona as Gila monsters meet me at the airport, that great children's book. There are a surprising amount of places where you can't see saguaros, and you can in Papago Park. And it's right in the center of town. But you don't necessarily see Gila monsters. You do see Heron. There was a day there when I actually called my mother and said, "If you are missing all the waterfowl where you are, it's because they are all where I am in Papago Park."
And she was presumably in Coronado at this
She
time.
was yeah,
Okay.
she was
Okay.
yeah, I think she was. So herons, egrets, just abound in these parks, which is fun to see.
And
And,
a quick mention, our lovely book, Arizona Friend
mm,
Trip: Stories from the Road, I believe includes a picture of the heron that we saw the day that we went on that walk.
it does indeed. Yes. Yeah, you
Yeah,
got a great picture that day. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. A
But I
heron.
digressed.
Well, no, but it's a heron looking, it's kind of an action stock of him looking both grumpy and focused, which actually might be a self-portrait for me today, but we'll ride right on past that.
Except to tell you the truth, this is why you're special, because I could not begin to ascribe an expression on a heron on my best day, let alone two expressions on a heron on my best day.
Well, we all have our special gifts. So anyway, yes, Papago Park for me, where there's, almost always just a huge blue sky and canals for walking or biking, and great paths through the creosote and picnic areas that are, I think, really beloved by people, and people go fish in the ponds. It's a lovely place to see people enjoying the park too. And I like that. It's a loved place. It's good to be in
Oh,
a loved place.
that's a
Mhm.
nice description. A
Yeah.
loved place. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's very
Mhm.
and, we will just say again, as I probably say every time we talk about anything like that, that I can only surmise that because the Tohono O'odham are south and not really boots on the ground at Papago Park is why it has not been renamed, because
Oh,
Papago is the pejorative, the Peman bean
yes,
eater
that's
that
right.
still somehow shows up here even though we have fixed some other names of indigenous peoples in Arizona. So
Yes.
someday we're going to fix that too. You and I,
Ye
single-handedly. But not today. Today's got
No,
enough on the schedule.
perhaps not today. It's maybe a brief trip, pretty easy to get there. Have a look at the sky and the ponds and what's enjoying both. That's my tour today, but it's good to be there, and sometimes simple, familiar places are reassuring.
Absolutely. Plenty of
Mhm.
parking. Feel
Yeah.
free to stop at the gift shop
Yes.
on your way out.
Yes, exactly right. Yes. And yeah, and we should mention that Papago Park is not only home to the Phoenix Zoo, it also has a golf course, it has desert botanical gardens, it's bordered by the Crosscut Canal from SRP, and it has a butte with
That's
a hole in the
right.
rock where people, love
Yes.
to climb up. That is one thing I have never done. I don't like I don't like slippery rocks.
Makes my
They
palms sweat when you
y
say that even.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
was gonna say
yeah.
we should, but I'm thinking, no, we
And
shouldn't.
then maybe
Yeah, let's
not. No,
we can
no.
look at it.
Something like that. Yeah, we'll figure out how to, do the sticker of us on a photo and superimpose it
There you
and
go.
claim it. Yeah.
Us and Hole in the Rock.
That might be as close as we get to
Yeah.
Ascension.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, but anyway.
Well, let's take a break and then we're gonna hit the road.
Okay, sounds good.
The good people at Visit Flagstaff remind us that we celebrate Route 66 turning 100 next year. It's never too early to start getting our kicks, as the Route 66 song says. Flag has so much on Route 66. There's the McMillan downtown, where my dad and son and I had a great meal. Also, the Dog House, on the corner where the girl, my lord, in a flatbed Ford actually slowed down to take a look at Jackson Browne before he wrote Take It Easy. Go visit Flagstaff. So now we're
So
going to go
now,
north.
okay, yes.
And this subject came to me because I realized, I think for the first time, that what I thought was well, okay, we're going to go up I-17. We're
Mhm.
going to Flagstaff. We're
Mhm.
going to the Monte Vista Hotel.
Oh, yes.
And I somehow had completely forgotten that I knew the Monte Vista Hotel before I think I knew the Monte Vista Hotel. And that's the little squib of a story that I'm going to share today.
Good.
The Monte Vista actually starts. anybody would say that I started the Monte Vista Hotel when the Northern Arizona Bureau, Channel 3, opened the bureau office in the Monte V, 1989, of course. But no, I'd forgotten that I was there in 1987 or 8. And that smacked me on the forehead. And I thought, I think I need to share this story. Um, so the Monte V was unknown to me. And I was with a reporter from San Diego who was seeing Northern Arizona. And this was a guy who he was way above my pay grade. He had a family mansion, and I mean, just we didn't last for 1,000 good reasons. But we happened to be in Flagstaff and went into the Monte V. They had a little restaurant, and I think maybe it was Chinese food or something. But he could be above a lot of people's pay grade. So
Mm.
this young, I believe, Danae waitress server comes over, and I ordered a cup of coffee, and he said, "What kind of beer do you have?" And she says, having no idea who she's dealing with, "Oh, we have about every kind of beer." Well, she doesn't know that he had been partying with the New Zealand team in the America's Cup race, whose beer was Steinlager. And he said, "You have about every kind of beer." And I
Mm.
thought, oh
Oh
God, this
no.
is going to
Yeah, here it
crash in a
comes. Yeah.
spectacular fashion. And I'm just waiting
Yeah.
for the impact and the shards of flying everything.
Yeah.
And he shocks me. He says, "Well, in that case, I'll have a Bud Light."
Huh.
And I thought, oh, thank God, crisis averted. I was so relieved and so surprised. And
Interesting.
she had no idea
Yeah.
and trotted
Yeah.
off to get a Bud Light.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And I had forgotten about all of that in the Monte V. And I'm going to leapfrog the Bureau because we're going to be at the Bureau when I read at the end,
Okay.
and go up to later present day when Larry and I, Daddy and I, would go to Flagstaff and frequently, if not always, make sure to get to the sweet shop on
Oh,
Aspen
yes.
because they
Yes.
had gelato. And we would get our gelato and we would walk it down to what had then become a coffee and wine bar that you knew well, the Rendezvous at the Monte
Mm-hmm.
V.
Yes.
And we would order coffee and we would sit and we would point at the Mission ice cream sign out the window across on what used to be McGaw's bookstore.
I
And we would,
loved my Gauze
yes, it
bookstore
smelled like
and the
tobacco. Yeah,
popcorn.
and popcorn, exactly. Yes.
McGaw's newsstand.
Yes,
Yep.
and we would talk about McGaw's and the Mission ice cream sign, and we would eat our gelato and drink our coffee.
Hmm.
And so Montevi is beloved for so many, many, many great
Oh, so
reasons.
many.
And those are bookend great reasons from 1980 early and the 2000s, both aughts and teens, I believe. I think we did that for a pretty long time.
And can I ask a question about maybe not necessarily the Monte but Mission ice cream?
Yes.
This is something I've not heard about before.
Okay, well, on the side of McGaw's,
Yeah.
from the 80s to present day, unless something happened very recently, there is a faded painted sign advertising Mission ice cream.
Oh my
And I've
gosh.
photographed this thing dozens of times, and it gets a little more weather beaten as time goes on, but it's still very readable. So, Mission ice cream is the sign on the side of McGaw's, and that was visible from the Montevideo.
Wow. The number of times I've been on, San Francisco and Aspen and not once have noticed which wall. So it's not is it facing, it's facing the Monte so it's
Exactly.
facing
Yeah.
north.
Yeah. When you look out of the window of the
Yeah.
bureau or the rendezvous,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
see. But
Looking south.
that's kind of nice because it reminds me that sometimes I will go to my neighbor Kathy's house and I'll say, "Is that new?" About a pot or a picture. And she'll get this kind of funny look and say, "Well, it's probably been there for 25 years." And I think,
Yeah.
damn, how did I miss that? So thank you for
How
missing Mission Ice
funny.
Cream because
Yeah.
it isn't
Well,
just me.
well, really, it was nothing. Jeez. Oh boy.
But
Okay.
that happens in life, doesn't it? You see
Well,
something you hadn't noticed before.
yeah, it really
One sees
does.
something one hadn't noticed before.
Yeah. Yeah, and I suppose that is a corner where you could walk by every day and see something new,
So
or at least
true.
new to you. There's something there that's it's a very vibrant corner.
It's a vision-rich environment.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, I'm glad to go there because I love those big windows looking out on the vision-rich environment
Yes.
of that crossroads. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Since we're here, I think we're probably supposed to do something else, but we are going to share the mug of the day
Oh, good. Oh,
because
the sweet
the Sweet
shoppy.
Shoppy, yes, candy store, Flagstaff, Arizona. So that is today's mug that will be on the website.
Okay, and so you got gelato there. Did you ever like sweets from there? Or is there a sweet that you would go looking for?
Oh, yes. I mean, you could go nuts in there. I would frequently bring Tom Toffee from there. And I
Okay.
think I don't remember that they ever had coconut haystacks, although in my head they should have. What about you?
So I love Brock's
I
butterscotches.
like them
There
very
are plenty
well.
of more sophisticated butterscotches in the world, but I love I love those butterscotches. And I also, oddly enough, I've never made this connection before, like butter mints. And so, yeah, so I don't know
Buttermints.
if it's really actually a thing about butter
Although I do love me
because
some
I like
butter.
that too. But yeah, but those are definitely 2 favorites. Interesting.
Oh,
Yeah, okay. Gotta
nice.
remember toffees for Tom, though. That's a good note.
Toffees for
Yeah.
Tom and the butter things.
Yeah,
The
the
stuff that
butter
starts with
things.
butter.
Yeah, good.
Lovely. Okay, breaking to come back to read.
Sounds great.
We have a second new sponsor, the Coogan and Martin Law Firm in Tubac. One more reason to love Tubac. It's such a charming little city, and it has a law firm that truly meets every need an attorney can provide. Real estate transactions, wills and probate, agricultural law, international transactions. They have worked together for decades. They are salt of the earth, brilliant people, and I cannot recommend Coogan and Martin more highly. But first, there's more.
But
Let's
first,
see.
yes.
You talked first, so I read first, huh?
Okay, do.
Little long. I'll
Okay.
call it out. Little
Well,
long.
mine's very short, so they'll
Perfect.
balance. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Here we are
Shh,
again, helping
quiet.
each other out. And I know you didn't say quiet to me. You said
I
it
did
to our
not. It was
lovely
to
Luna
it yes, it
doggy.
was Luna Doggy. Yes, she's back making herself known. And
Good.
yes, yes. Sorry, listeners. No, the quiet was definitely not to you.
May there always be room for doggies to vocalize.
Oh, well,
Count the day lost. You don't have a doggy to vocalize.
yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Well, we are going back to the Monte Vista, and this is from a yet unpublished work. Unpublished because I'm still working on it, and I'm not
Okay.
positive it will ever see air. It is the memoir about my years in television.
Oh.
And every time I walk through the lobby of Monte Vista, I remember this particular moment. And it ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger, but you and I, and probably our listeners, know that it is not Tom Heidinger's last appearance in my life.
Mhm.
Tom Heidinger, our beloved producer. So he can either take a walk or he can hear himself read about. His choice.
Here we go.
Okay. Even though the Bureau wasn't at the 1989 World Series at Candlestick Park during the San Francisco earthquake, it impacted me. An event stemming
Hmm.
from it lodged in my mind like a few persistent lines of a song that returns when you aren't guarding against them. I learned later that since there were so few satellite trucks there and everyone in the nation wanted live coverage, Tom Heidinger transmitted for 36 hours straight.
Whoa.
Then he slept for a few hours. A few
I
days
hope so.
later, Schmidt and I walk into the bureau mid-afternoon. The young guy behind the desk, they rotated often enough and seemed so indifferent to us that we didn't learn their names, bestirred himself enough to say to me, "A guy left you this." He held out a brown paper bag, folded over. I opened it to see a mint green women's tee. Pulled out, the front read, "I survived the San Francisco earthquake." It had to be from Tom. How long ago? Which way did he leave? Did he say
Yeah.
anything? The guy didn't share the urgency of my questions with his answer. Not really. A beat. Why? You have a crush on him or something? A crush? On Tom? Multiple images flooded my brain screen. His straight blonde hair, his broad-shouldered, purposeful walk, his husky voice and laugh, the keys clipped to his belt, his essential aloneness, and the postcards I mailed to him from Cameron and the canyon. No, I said. Of course I don't. I went into the women's room across from the bureau door to buy a little time from Schmidt. I felt I needed a minute away from his curiosity to dismiss the absurdity of that question, get my game face on. I felt numb, a little nonplussed, and I couldn't deny I was devastated I'd missed Tom. I wanted to see him awfully bad. A crush on Tom. In high school, I'd written a poem titled The Thought that was something like, it enters, undetected, like a germ or the drop of water that becomes a stalactite. So profane, so against the party line, it is either surely heresy or salvation. Tom? Really? I went into the office, showed Schmidt the shirt, and he shook his head. Tommy would have had to come like 6 hours out of his way to do this, he said. He must really like you. Well, I like him too, I said lightly, thinking hide in plain sight. That night, I called Tom's extension, 3452, to leave a thank you message. I felt as empty as a corn husk when he didn't answer.
Oh, yes, it is a cliffhanger. Yes. Yes.
Except that
that. Yes. Oh, that is just, I don't know. I mean, the drop by gift. I don't know. It feels so Hollywood. It's wonderful.
Oh.
Yeah.
I hope I dare say that reminds me of when somebody ran through traffic in the rain to give you a kiss. One of the great Hollywood moments.
That was a great moment. That was pretty incredible. Yes. But I also wanted to say the thought as either salvation or heresy. That's interesting. Yeah.
It's not somewhere in the middle, boy. It's too big to be anywhere in middle ground.
Yep. Some thoughts feel exactly like that. It's going to fall heavy one side or another, but there's nothing light,
Fall heavy
or
is
middle
nice.
about this. Yeah.
Fall heavy. I love fall heavy. Wow.
Well, you did it.
No, you called it. So you have a little bit of reading for us?
Yes, I have a little bitty poem. So going back to Papago Park, one of the other things that you can see is sometimes the bighorn sheep on their butte because you walk past the back of their enclosure. And there was a day when, sure enough, here I am walking, and there is the ram on the very top of the tallest butte. And it was just this, because of the angle of the sun, it was blue sky and ram, and there was nothing else in the world. And that image is pretty compelling. So I wrote, Papago Ram is the title. A standing challenge. Who am I to approach, cross this round earth and sky?
You know what? I want to hear that one more time.
Well, we have time because it's
We do, yes. I feel free to ask.
A standing challenge. Who am I to approach, cross this round earth and sky?
I almost hate to bring that incredibly stalwart, stark image down to this level, but I think I'm going to anyway. My friend Diana did a river trip, and saw
Mm.
bighorn sheep
Mm-hmm.
and was informed by the river guide that for the size of the mammal, bighorn sheep have the largest testicles of any breed or species.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that about them, but I did know that they have a really big jump. And that is because when mom was serving on the zoo board, there was the zoo director shared a story with her because the zoo sent some of their bighorn sheep herd down to the Sonoran Desert Museum to sort of share. Maybe wrong, I can check my sources. But then the Sonoran Desert Museum called the zoo director with, sort of a status report. And, the director said, how's it going with, the sheep, everything? Well, the male, I mean, they look great. They look great. They look great inside and outside the exhibit.
Not what he expected to hear. He or she expected to hear.
The sheep. No, sheep had bounded over whatever enclosure fence there
Oh
had
my
been. But it's a
gosh.
pretty great line. Looks great outside the exhibit too. I don't know who got to be on sheep roundup. I think that would have been something. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And I do think of that. Yes. So I knew so I know they have a big jump. The zoo is prepared for that.
Okay.
They have some big, they have some big fence lines. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
To
Good.
keep everyone safe from standing challenges and, and other things. Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Boy,
Yeah.
we all just keep sharing and learning, don't we?
Yes. Well, and I will say that I also wanted to go. There is a trail in the Catalina Mountains, north of Tucson, where you are supposedly able to see a herd of bighorn sheep.
Really?
Yeah, I believe it's on the north side of the Catalinas, like coming from Catalina State Park,
Okay.
that you can hike in where you can see sheep.
Well, that would make
And
sense because remember they did that big release.
yes,
And
yes, yep.
so,
And I never went because I always had dogs with me, and that was definitely a no dogs
oh,
trail, which, good for
oh,
them, right?
sure.
Like,
But
let us be
yeah,
sheep in peace here. Yes. But that makes me happy too, to think
let us
that
be
they're
sheep in peace.
the first thing I said to my pastor was, I'm a very difficult sheep.
Oh, and I bet he was not one bit phased, was he?
He just said, okay, it's all right. Have a seat. It was pretty great. Yeah. Yeah. So yes, let us be there. We've gone from broccoli to sheep. Let us be
Yeah,
sheep
let
in
us be
peace.
sheep in peace. And that reminds me of the Henley line. We're like sheep without a shepherd. We don't know how to be alone.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
But-
End up following the wrong God's home.
Oh, that's a great line. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
All right. More to learn
Well,
as always.
yes, isn't that delightful?
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for being here.
Bye for now.
We'd really like to hear from you about anything this show led you to think about. Write to us at celebratingaz.com. The wizard behind making a conversation into a podcast is Tom Heidinger. The music comes from Daniel Blanton, and I'm Dana Cooper.